All right, guys, what's going on? It's Coach Will. In this video here, I want to talk about if you can become a millionaire through gym ownership. Now, what we're talking about here, just to be clear, is building $1 million in net asset liquid worth as a gym owner, right? Whether that be having $1 million cash in the bank, $1 million plus in equitable assets, liquidatable assets. How to get there as a gym owner, right? Because there's a lot of people that want to get into gym ownership or who will spend their best years running gyms. I know this because I work with 600, I think 700 gym owners now at this point. Gym owners, managers, and I think we've worked with over 1,000 total now if you include past clients as well. And what I've found is that there's a lot of really, really smart, talented people that will forego a traditional path of earning to follow their passion in fitness, right? Because maybe they've had a life change through fitness, maybe they've had an experience that they want to bring to other people, or they're just in it for the money. They think that gym ownership would be a really lucrative way to make money. So I want to talk about what it takes to make $1 million or to have $1 million in net worth through gym ownership, right? Okay. So first thing we're going to do is understand that there's two ways to assess value in a company, right? When a company is being assessed, you have its cash flow. What's the profit the business spits off as you grow and the business exceeds its overheads, right? If your cost of doing business after you pay everybody and pay all the bills is $10,000 and you do $20,000 in revenue, the difference is the $10K. That's your profit. That's your cash flow, right? Ideally, that would go into the company's operating account, and then you could choose to pay yourself from that or reinvest it in the business, whatever you want to do. The cash flow itself is something that people use to assess the value of the business. Number two is the company's asset or enterprise value, right? So this is often not something talked about in the small business world. This is usually in larger scale business, mid to large size companies. People will look at the asset value of the company, right, as a whole, right? So they're looking at the business just like buying a house, right? It's not necessarily the cash flow it spits off, but the entire holistic view of it, right? Which can include the customer list plus the hard good, right? And in the larger business world, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with profit. It could be the technology. It could be the specific way of doing things. It could be intellectual property. It could be patents. It could be the customer list, right? Maybe right now that business is losing money, but it has a customer list that if they stopped spending money on new client acquisition tomorrow would yield a profit right away, right? Because some businesses don't show a profit because they're reinvesting all their cash in acquiring new customers and also investing in making the business better, right? So those are the two different ways that companies are valued: cash flow and then actual asset enterprise value, right? So when we talk about cash flow, easy. We just described that, right? That's what it makes over and above, right? If your business is profitable, then you can get some sort of you can put that cash in the bank. You can choose to reinvest that cash and grow its net worth, right? When I had both my gyms, as I made money in my gyms, I paid myself both a reasonable salary on W-2 because I was an S corporation and it was required as an S corporation. I pay myself a reasonable salary on W-2 as a role player of the business, right? But then I also took draws, right? Which both are taxed differently. And I would do a little bit of both so I could maximize the tax advantage of taking draws, but also make sure I'm paying myself a fair wage. And also, over the course of the year, reporting an income on a W-2. That way, if I wanted to go, get financing on something, I could show that I was making an income versus just drawing cash off of the business as a self-employed person, right? So, the cash flow itself, what you do with that can obviously grow your net worth, right? When I had my gyms, I was able to put away hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash that I invested when the economy was really starting to tick up from 2014 to 2020 and beyond. And, a lot of that money, as I invested it in just normal equities like stocks and things like that, doubled and tripled and quadrupled over time, right? I bought, 3 houses as side projects while I owned my gym. And those houses are all worth 2, 3, 4x the amount of money. And I did, while being a gym owner, I owned one location in Southern California and a second location in Phoenix, Arizona. During the period of time of owning those gyms, I used cash flow and money I made from the gym to reinvest in other side businesses that multiplied, right? And as a result, I did build multiple millions of dollars in net worth as a gym owner, right? And then while I was doing that, I was actually building the business's enterprise value, right? I was very set on when I exited the gym, I wanted to exit I want someone to pay me for this business, some sort of multiplier of its profits, right? And what I would say is for a gym, what we found, and there's all types of consultants out there that can help you get an evaluation on a business, but having seen it done now like hundreds of times, seen like hundreds of gyms change hands, and also have consulted and have played a part in several transactions of gyms. What I found is no matter how you want to do the math, it usually ends up being worth somewhere around 1 year's revenue if you're lucky. And when I say if you're lucky, what I mean is no one wants to buy a job, right? So when you go to exit your gym and you go to sell it, if you're selling a job, someone else has to take over the reins and run that thing day to day and coach all the classes and do all the sales and do all the front desk work. The business is only really worth what the equipment is worth at that rate. At that rate, you really just have it's an asset sale, right? You're going to sell the equipment and you try to get what you can for the customer list, right? If you really want to see a multiplier in enterprise value of the customer list value at the end of your ownership as a gym owner, what you'll do is you'll start to eliminate yourself from the business day to day, right? You'll sell an actual business, because the difference between being self-employed, which is owning a job, which if we look at like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, for example, has a great book called Cash Flow Quadrant. And it's one of my favorite things to reference, but he has what's called the Cash Flow Quadrant here. And if we were to do this, up here is E, this is employee, and we're not that, right? So we don't need to worry about that one. We're not in that trap. And there's here SE, which is self-employed, right? And this is where a lot of gym owners sit. You have over here is you have business, and you have here, which is investor, right? Now, ideally, most people's journey when they go into business ownership looks something like this. They leave working for someone else, they become self-employed right here, and then a lot of people just get stuck here because what they do is what I described, where they essentially create a job for themselves, right? They have a role they play in the business, and if they don't show up tomorrow or this week to run that business, it does not survive, right? When that's the situation with your business, you don't actually have a business. You're actually technically self-employed and you have a job, or you could say even worse, you don't have a job. You have a job that kind of owns you. The business kind of owns you because if you don't show up, it doesn't run, right? So I would say in that situation, not a place you want to get stuck. It's also, if you have this kind of business, when you go to sell it, it's just going to be worth whatever the equipment is. So if you spent $50K on the equipment to upfit the building and get it right, then you're going to try to get as much of that as you can back at the end, which is kind of unfortunate because say you build a business that cash flows several hundred thousands of dollars, you ideally would hope to get several hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end and sell that for some sort of value, right? Because it has value, but it only has value if it's turnkey, right? So business right here, this is where if we just were to draw a little key here, okay, so that's a key, a little key ring on it, just so we know what that is. And then here, so business, right? This is where we want to be. We want to have business, which is a collection of systems, and it can run without us, right? Maybe not forever, but I can disappear for a month and things are going to run. It means I have employees, I have automation, I have tools in place. The business has good marketing in place that can run and bring in lead. It can bring in traffic and lead gen, and we can convert clients, and that just runs without me having to literally like pull the levers every day, right, to get to do it. And the last is investor, which is where like you take that money that's the business is spinning off and you invest either outside the business or reinvest it in the business to grow it. That's more of a mindset shift or how you would position yourself, right? So ideally you end up over here and then down here in the long term, right? Building a business to sell would be like thinking like an investor down here. So it's like a built to sell, we'll call this built BTS, built to sell. You're building a business to sell. You're thinking like an investor. I'm not just building a gym because I love gyms. I'm also building a business that I own 100% of the stock of, or some percentage of the stock of, depending on if you have a partner, that I can sell that stock and the stock has gone up as I've owned it, right? The stock, this here, the business has stock and it's gone up ultimately, okay? So we click that and it's gone up, okay? So that's really, really important that we address early on, that's what we're talking about when we talk about value, right? And along the way, what's interesting about this, if you build, when the businesses that are best built to sell are also the ones that tend to cash flow, in big little gyms in our mastermind and like the higher tier clientele that we have that are really making some good money running their gyms, running $1 million a year gyms. A lot of them didn't start that way. When they came to us, they were very much self-employed, and we got good systems in order and they started to listen and deploy some of those things and get a general manager in place, get a front desk person in place, get automated, implement all of our automated marketing systems in place, and just work on growing the business versus working inside the business. The business started to really crank out some serious cash. It's amazing what happens when you detach yourself from the day-to-day business, because you're kind of clouded in decision making that is somewhat reactionary, and it's hard to focus on what you should do next to get people in the door if you're in it day to day, listening to what everybody's telling you should do, when that's not always the best thing for us, right? We need to be focused on vision. So now, what are the 4 cash flow generators? So right here, you get more recurring memberships. You can increase your prices, right? You can increase how much you're charging for your service. You can increase the value of each customer through upsell and ascension, and you can also focus on keeping your customers longer, right? At the end of the day, like when we talk what a customer's worth and growing a business, it's some equation of that, right? Like what the lifetime value of a client is, which when we're talking about increasing your prices, increasing the value of each customer through upsell and ascension, and keeping them longer and reducing churn, what you're doing there is you're increasing what's called lifetime value, right? So that's LTV, right? And those are the 3 main parts of LTV, right? Increase what they're paying for like your core service. So if you sell $150 a month membership and you increase that to $180, that's increasing lifetime value if the customer were to stay for the same amount of time. Now, if you were to also go and upsell, say you take that $180 a month customer and now you sell them into your nutrition coaching program and make them worth $350 a month, you've now increased their average client value, right? So say we increase the price to $180 for that client, and then we take them further up the value ladder and they go to a $350 price point because they're paying for nutrition and fitness. They're at $350, and then say they normally stay for 10 months, but you double that because you just increase client retention through a number of methods. That to 20 months, they're $350 times 20 months. You've effectively taken this customer that was a $150 a month customer times 10 months, which is $1,500 of total lifetime value, and you've made it a $7,000 customer by multiplying how long they stay by a longer period of time and increasing their worth, right? Which sounds like a lot, but it's honestly like we have gyms do it all the time. I mean, all the time, and it's really not that hard. It's simple. Is it easy? No. I mean, you definitely need to move some things around. You need to probably break some of your beliefs around marketing your business and scaling your business, and you probably also need to make some hires, which can be very, very hard in some markets. If that can mean building an internship process so you can create a pipeline of people interested in coaching at your gym and business. These are the things that business owners do, guys. So, I say that, and then people are like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. It's like, well, here's the interesting thing about business is it's hard, right? And we know when we signed up to start a business, we heard everywhere under the sun that this was going to be hard. People told us starting a business is hard. There's a reason why not everybody starts a business. And people are like, okay, well, I know it's hard. I like hard things because I'm a person that works out. So I like doing hard things. So don't tell me about hard because I kick my own ass every day in the gym, right? And then they go run the business and they realize the kind of hard that a business is a different kind of hard that they like to do, right? It's kind of like if you're a sales and marketing guy and someone asks you to do compliance stuff for your business, you're like, oh my God, I would quit that right there. I would describe myself as someone who is like that, right? I very much like teaching and coaching and selling and marketing over doing like compliance type things, right? And we've had stuff in our business I've had to deal with compliance, taxes and compliance and regulatory things with, all different kinds of stuff, right? Like, and that stuff, that's the real hard stuff, right? That's the hard things that, in this situation, of getting organized, placing more focus on sales, hiring people, building out upsell and ascension systems. That's the kind of hard a gym owner will shy away from because, it's challenging and it's not the kind of hard that they want to be doing, right? The kind of hard a gym owner wants to be doing is, maybe I have a challenging client that doesn't move very well and I got to figure out how to make them move well. They enjoy that kind of challenge, right? Which is very much a service-oriented challenge. But the thing is, you can't be the person serving every client in your gym forever. Eventually, someone else needs to do that. You need to focus on the hard things that are hard things about business, which is this stuff here, okay? So, getting more customers, increasing your prices, increasing the value of each customer through upsell ascension, and keeping them longer and reducing churn. Those 4 things should be the focus of every CEO of every business everywhere, and they are for real CEOs. And if you are a real business owner as a gym owner, then you would approach things this way, right? And I'll give it a bonus mention here for reducing debt here. Okay, so reducing debt in these situations has also helped, right? Because say you're doing all these things well, but you're not cash flowing because you have some major loan repayments. Try to get your debt repaid as quickly as possible because, here's what I'll say is most gym owners, that 3 to 4 year window of gym ownership is where they kind of really start simmering if they're not starting to really break through lifestyle-wise. Most people will live under a bridge and sleep in a box for 3 or 4 years while their business starts up because they're okay with that, right? They're okay with doing the hard work early. But there's an expectation, that in a somewhat reasonable amount of time that we start our lifestyle starts to provide for us, our business starts to provide for us. And if we don't see that window in a 3 to 4 year period, we start to burn out. And no matter how passionate we are about doing the fitness part of it, we will opt to go out of business and do something else with our time to make money because it's not providing for us, right? So reduce debt quickly, right? I would say, even if you're on a 7-year repayment plan for your loans for your business, if say you had some startup costs that you finance, I would double down on those and reduce the total interest-bearing amount as quickly as possible and pay that down quickly. I would choose to be broke, a little more broke in a shorter period of time than to be somewhat broke over a longer period of time, right? Because again, there's just a threshold of time there where you're going to choose to do other things if you don't begin to see your lifestyle change. Gym math. So let's talk about let's do some hard math here. Let's do some practical math to get you guys thinking about this, to kind of break this down with logic. So I give you guys a lot of pain-driven reasons here to shift to maybe why and how you're focusing on your business and how you run it. And people choose to change the reason they do things because of like emotion and pain like that. But what's really going to make it sink for you is when I go over the logic of it, when I do the math for you. People justify emotionally, or people will choose to make this. People make decisions people make decisions emotionally and justify logically. So you maybe after listening to that first part here, you've chosen to focus a little bit more on this side of your business and taking it more seriously as a business owner. Now I'm going to give you the logical justification as to why you should do it. That way, that you're not just, making decisions based on what some guy on YouTube told you based on high level advice, right? We're getting into the granular here, right? So and what we're talking about here is the average, say 3 to 5,000 square foot gym, right? And if you're roughly around that, say you're 2,500 or 6,000 square feet, we could include you too. What I'm basically talking about here is your average group fitness, independently owned group fitness studio, right? Most gyms kind of fall into this pocket here. Coaching classes of say 15 to 20, 25, maybe even people, right? So let's talk about let's talk about the math. Okay, let's go into this here. So we're gonna do some gym and math here. And I'm gonna really quickly, let me grab this guy and just move this page over a little bit here so I can have some stuff to write on. Okay, so what are the overheads of running a gym like this? Let's just do some ballpark. Let's say we have a 3,500 square. Let's reverse engineer $1 million, shall we? So reverse engineer a $1 million rev business. Okay. So what's it take to make $1 million in revenue, right? Which if we're trying to build $1 million in enterprise value and the business is worth 1 times revenue, that would mean a $1 million revenue business is worth $1 million in exit value, right? For a gym. So let's do some quick math on that. So $1 million. Let's go ahead and medium. $1 million there divided by 12 months. What does that equal? I can tell you off the top of my head, 'cause I've done this math many times. $8,333, and it goes on for infinite here. We can just call this 8333334. Okay, so we need to make 833. Actually, I'm sorry, that's $100,000 a year in profit. So, anyways, that's here. Add an extra one there. $83,334 per month in cash before costs. Okay, that's a $1 million revenue business. Okay, now. Say we want to make, I don't know, a certain amount of revenue out of this thing. We'd have to do our overhead math, but what kind of money can this spin off for this kind of gym, right? So say we're renting a 5,000 square feet space, and even if our rent is high, 5,000 square feet times, say even $2 per square foot, that is a $10,000 a month overhead, right? So $10,000 a month. We could say electricity on this space is $1,000 a month. Okay, for electricity. Let's just say electricity and utilities, okay? Because that might include trash and water and a few other things. $1,000 a month in utilities. Let's say you have a $2,000 a month marketing budget. which I've recently consulted for one of the largest Orange Theory franchise holder that owns holds the rights to 3 states, Texas, Florida, and Washington. And they have 80 locations, and they budget about $2,000 a month per location. And they do, their average location does over $1 million revenue. So there's that. Let's say, we have payroll. That's our big one, right? So payroll, let's call that, let's say you set aside, let's go high, conservatively estimate high, $15,000 a month in payroll. There, what do we sit at now total? Now, there's going to be some other costs of doing business. Let's just add on another, say, $5,000 for other random costs. Okay, so where do we sit here? We're at $10,000, $25,000, $27,000, $28,000, $33,000. Now, you can come in considerably less expensive than this, right? You can find $1 a square foot rent in most areas. It won't be high-end retail. It'll probably be more like industrial warehouse, but there's plenty of warehouse space. $1,000 utilities, they'll probably come in half that most months. Marketing, I probably would earmark $2,000 a month. I would spend $2,000 a month no matter what. If I opened up a gym today, I would spend $2,000 a month every month, no matter what, because even if it didn't generate direct return this month, the awareness, word of mouth, and engagement will start to pile up over time. And before too long, everybody in town will know you exist if you spend that kind of money per month on your marketing, right? Doing some awareness advertising, some paid ads, some social media strategy where you're pushing those posts out through boosting, things like that. Also doing some local keyword bidding as well. $15,000 a month payroll. A lot of markets you can get by cheaper than that, right? So you're at $33,000 in total cost. And if we're at $8,333 here, 83,334, we profit, over $50,000 in profit, okay, on that business. You can see there's a huge margin on that business, right? You can pay yourself a couple $100,000 a year easily and still keep a 30% profit margin on a business like this. Now, there's other costs I'm forgetting here, but I just wanted to break down some of the gym and math here. Now, even if, say, you just want to make $100,000 a year as a gym, that math's pretty easy too. Say, you keep these same, and you're a little bit more, say you have a 3,500 square foot space, $3,500 at $1 square foot, you have $3,500 in rent, you're spending $2,000 on marketing, you have smaller space, smaller customer base, so you have $10,000 in rent here, $1,000 in utilities. I mean, that really covers most of your costs. Let's just say an extra $3,000 to cover everything else, rando costs. What are we at here? You're at $3,500, $2,500, $12,500, $13,500, $15,500 in total overhead for a 3,500 square foot gym. With everybody paid, $10K should be able to pay a general manager and as well as a couple part-timers to run that thing for you. You're at $15,000 overhead, so if you want to make $8,500 a month, which will put you over a, $100K salary in total here, you would need to net here, $23,500 gross revenue. And I'm probably forgetting something, but say $30,000 total, just to, $30,000 total. Even say it's at $30,000 total revenue, you need to make $100K a year. If you've got 150 members, that's $200 a month that you need to be making average revenue value, average client value monthly. Okay? Pretty easy to achieve if I break down the math for you guys. Just want to really break down some math here, both on the $1 million mark here, but then also on the, say you want to just make 100K a year running your gym, right? Very, very easy to do, right? Okay. So now, there's our cash flow side of things, right? Cash flowing on the gym math there. That's kind of why I went over that. I just want to do the math of cash flowing on a gym. As you can see, simple, not necessarily easy, but simple, right? The math is simple. Buying the building, right? Okay, so that's the other way you can really cross into this threshold of $1 million in net worth as a gym owner, right? So if you're paying rent on a 3,500 square foot building or a 5,000 square foot building or space, that space that you're renting is probably a $1 million asset. The building, commercial real estate, $1 million is just getting started. So, in most cities and most states, at the real estate market conditions, even a 3,000 square foot building is probably $1 million space, right? And that same rent you're paying is probably pretty close to what you'd pay in if you were to get a mortgage, SBA small business loan for that building and acquire that building. Your rent would probably be pretty close, and sometimes even come under, depending on interest rates, which as of this recording right now are a little bit high. But the thing is, you can always buy while they're high and then refinance when they come down. That's a great thing about interest rates. And when interest rates go down, property prices tend to go up because everybody buys, and now you have equity, right? So we talk about fixing the cost of doing business. That's what buying the building will do. And this is something we talk to a lot of gym owners about doing, is work towards buying the building or building a building that you own, right? Because here's the thing for me that kind of tugs on my heartstrings with gym owners is you guys, gym owners, will probably some of your best years, because that's when you're fittest and when you're most able-bodied to teach fitness, is 25 to 45, right? 25, you're out on your own, you choose you want to do this, and you're going to forego maybe working at Wall Street or working a corporate job and climbing the corporate ladder, where you could probably eventually, you put enough time and you can make a couple $100,000 a year, right? Doing those things, right? You go to get a college degree, it's not going to be hard to make six figures a year through most of your working life, right? So I hate to see smart, talented people, and we have a lot of live events where I get to meet my gym owners, and some of these people are very smart, very talented, have college degrees that can make a lot more money than they do running their gym. And so for me, my goal is to hopefully make it so you can achieve well above and beyond the scope of outcome you would have had you pursued that other life through gym ownership, because I feel like gym owners provide a needed and necessary service to our society, right? It's not a good answer for how we do exercise and health and wellness provided by our governments. And I think I think gym owners provide a needed and necessary service, because we live in a time history where there's a lot less need. Get out and move your body, and it's causing a lot of the issues, health issues, downstream health issues. We should work towards getting our value in the market, but you don't get to do that by just asking for it and opening a business. You have to actually move into becoming a business owner and learning how to sell, market, and build value in your business so people will come and do business with you, right? So part of that journey might include buying the building, and I think that is the easiest way to transition into $1 million net scope of owning a gym, right? You can do it in the enterprise value by selling the gym, but I'll tell you, that's very challenging to do. I owned a gym that was worth well beyond $1 million. My second gym I started in 2020. Our exit plan was in 2020, and guess what happened in 2020? The shutdowns happened, and we had a gym, and we had interested buyers that were going to pay, interested in paying $1 million plus to acquire our gym, because our gym made several hundred thousands of dollars a year in profit. We had a great client base, great lifetime values, low churn, but shutdowns came through and pretty much squash any interest in people buying gyms at the time, right? And then depending on how financing is, if financing is not readily available, like right now, interest rates are kind of high, and banks have pretty much closed off financing for people to acquire businesses. So even if someone wanted to buy your gym right now, it'd be very, very difficult for them to buy your gym unless they just happen to have the free cash, which most people who have made the kind of money to have that kind of free cash don't keep it as free cash. They keep it somewhere working for them, right? So it's very, very difficult to exit a gym at what its enterprise value is probably worth, even if you can do it, right? So buying the building is probably your best path. And instead of paying rent, what you also do is, say you do decide you want to own this gym for the rest of your life. The cool thing is you can fix the cost of doing business, because one of the things we realized happened after the shutdowns was rents in a lot of markets doubled, right? Rents were very, very cheap for a long, long time after the 2008 recession, and they stayed low for a long, long time because times were hard. But as soon as, the economy got stimulated after the shutdowns, rents doubled in almost every market where gyms were, needing space. And that, if you own a business over 20, 30 years, you're probably going to see rents go up 3 or 4 or 5x over that period of time. But the cool thing is, if you're a homeowner and you bought your home in 2012 when things were nice and low, you got a low interest rate and you got a low that building, right? It's the same when you buy a business for your gym, buy the building that your gym is in, is you'll essentially fix your ongoing cost of doing business. I mean, payroll will continue to fluctuate, but if you can fix at least one of those things in your by not paying rent, but instead paying a mortgage, you both pay off an asset and fix that cost of doing business, right? The other way that you can become a multi-million-dollar gym owner, and this will be my last thing here, is you can open multiple locations. So say your market is challenged by being able to reach that level of with a single location. You could always look at building a replicatable model, which again is going to follow the same built to sell mentality, right? If you're going to open multiple locations, you need to build the flag a solid year, because I'll tell you, when you go to start a second location, it's going to take your mind and all your mental energy off of your first location. And what often ends up happening, we've seen this happen a lot, probably like 85% of gym owners that go to open to not renew the lease and go back to the single location because they find themselves doing twice as much work for the same amount of money, because it doesn't scale across two locations because they didn't build the first business to be scalable and run without them. So multiple locations, if you can build the first location with a built to sell mindset and build a replicatable model, and build them to where they're scalable, you absolutely can do this with second locations. But the success rate with a lot of gym owners has been, well, it's been low, and that's because those gym owners are often very, very short-sighted and thinking like, I'm just going to go do more of the same thing at a second location. But then location A begins to wane a little bit as location B picks up a little bit, and they're really just doing the same amount of business out of two locations. The business is not scalable because it's still them doing a lot of the dirty work in regards to, the in the business stuff, right? So, yeah, guys. So that's it, guys. That is how you become a millionaire through gym ownership. Those are your options, right? You have cash flow and asset value are the two things we're judging this on. Your main cash flow generators are getting more recurring memberships, increasing your total number of customers, in other words, increasing your prices. You can increase the value of each customer through upsell and ascension by building a value ladder. You can keep them longer through reduced churn and increase customer retention. You can reduce your debt along the way. Do your math and make sure you're running this out of a profitable location and that it's very scalable. You can fix your costs by buying the building and pay off an asset that you own that is worth millions of dollars as it appreciates, versus paying off someone else's asset that's going to appreciate while they also raise rent on you. Because that's the great thing about owning a building is, say you choose to close down your gym someday, you now own the building, you can rent it to someone else, and you can charge them the market value of rent. Right? And then you can also open multiple locations if you happen to pull off the first location and it is very scalable and runs without you. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you are a gym owner and you don't actively work with us, I would say, why don't? And if you are interested in finding out more about what we do, go to biglittlegyms.com, biglittlegyms.com. Check out what we do. Click the Get Started button, fill out the little form that's there. It'll take you over to book an intro where you can meet with our team, and we will talk to you about your current situation, your desired situation, what you're doing about it, show you how we can help you reach your goals, and we will talk about how to get started. And that's it, guys. Have a great day, and talk to you soon. Bye.